This series, while having flawed episodes, has continuously been hitting on a spectacular batting average, where at its very worst... Welcome back, House of the Dragon fans. It is season finale time. So, after 9 weeks of gathering right here to discuss all the episodes and all the spoilers, we are talking the Black Queen. Does this episode close out every storyline in a satisfying manner? Does it accomplish what the season set out to do? We're going to discuss all of that and the season in general. And I will tell you right now, this episode is a perfect companion piece to episode 9. I think they should have just been released together because they are very much two sides of the same coin. And this finale is so great at doing what it does, bringing all the story together, closing out everything that this season had set up, to the point it makes episode 9 better in context. This finale is so good at bringing everything to a close, and thematically, visually, and narratively, it is so much a reflection of the premiere and of all the storylines that have been built up and festering through this season, and it proves how the show never at all lost sight of what it wanted to accomplish, of the continuous through line that it was giving to us through this season with its storyline. From the beginning, this show has been about the self-destruction of the Targaryen lineage as prophesied by old King Jaehaerys, and how Viserys struggled to make that happen, to create a prosperous future for his bloodline, and how that is essentially what has it crumble to the ground. We have that building up through the season, and we have that in this episode, as it's pretty much like last week's, dealing with the fallout of Viserys' death, except now it's Rhaenyra's turn. The episode begins with her entrusting the future of her bloodline to her son Lucerys, much like Viserys does at the beginning of the season, and she learns of Viserys' death. Not only that, she is pregnant yet again, and she has a miscarriage. So much like her mother in the premiere of the season, Rhaenyra is all at once lamenting and grieving the loss of her son and now her father, much like she was grieving the loss of her brother and her mother. And so now she's going exactly through the same thing her father is going through, and it just hits. Emotionally, it's an extremely potent starting point. This is how the episode begins, and not only is she affected, we see Daemon completely lost. He lost his brother. The brother he always considered weak and beneath him, after already losing a wife and child all at once, and now he himself has lost another son. And so now he gets everything he wanted. He gets to be king besides the woman of his life, and he feels that weight. He feels completely lost, but it nevertheless stands right beside Rhaenyra, and even eventually bends the knee to her. No questions or qualms about it whatsoever. She is the queen and he serves her. Again, Men's not the stepdaddy. He's the daddy that stepped up. And it's an episode that hits thematically, but it also displays some gruesome imagery. That miscarriage sequence of Rhaenyra completely obsessed with bringing a new heir into the world, to make sure her claim to the throne is solidified, to make sure her bloodline continues to have hope for the future with more sons, with more heirs to continue the Targaryen bloodline. And that costs her 6th son his life. And he comes out already dead. And I cannot imagine how this imagery affects other people directly affected by this. To me, it was really gnarly to watch. And that continues through the rest of the episode. You feel that weight carried even when one of the Cargill twins shows up with Viserys' crown and gifts it to Rhaenyra, and everyone bends the knee to the rightful queen of the Seven Kingdoms in yet another powerful scene where now Rhaenyra, she feels the anguish, she learns of the betrayal, and she is now guided by her rage, because now not only is her claim threatened, her entire future, the future of her family, of her bloodline, of what her father wished for, is now under siege by the Hightowers. And I love the scene where Otto comes into Dragonstone and we have a mirror image to that confrontation from episode 2, even with Daemon standing up to him, ready to draw swords, but it's Rhaenyra that takes control of the situation, coming in on Cyrex's back, but now she walks to Daemon's side. And I have to say that Emma Darcy has completely taken the reins, not only of the show storyline-wise, but of this role. She completely conquered me as Rhaenyra, as someone who adored Millie Alcock's performance and take on the role, and has been really dubious about the overtaking by another actor. But Emma Darcy has nailed this, and you see it completely how much her strength and power are simply hiding her real fragility and vulnerability underneath, as Otto pokes at her feelings, at the long-running friendship she has with Alicent that had just recently been fixed, and how the two were really united because Viserys was always there. Viserys was always appealing to their better self, and you see Otto poking at this, trying to take that Rhaenyra out, the one that will concede the crown, but she doesn't. She stands strong. And through the rest of the episode, as they're trying to gather troops and to better strategize for the upcoming war against the Hightowers, you see a Rhaenyra that has learned from her father. Not from his mistakes, but from the good things he did as king and as father through the season, further illustrating how actually a good man Viserys was. Viserys the peaceful, Viserys who always tried his best. Viserys was a man who kept on doing mistakes until his last breath, and mistakes that have tragic, devastating consequences, but he never stopped trying. A good but flawed man. But as much as Rhaenyra has clearly learned from Viserys, where she wants to be level-headed about their strategy going into war, what's best for her family, what's best for her kingdom, taking advice from her council, seeking the perspective of her loyal subjects, where we even see the return of Corlys Velaryon to her side, swearing his allegiance. Daemon is much more of a hothead, as we know. He just wants to go to war and get his revenge. And this is where Rhaenyra confides in him the legend of Aegon the Conqueror. And this just strikes deep at the heart of Daemon, that there was something he never knew, that there was something his brother confided in Rhaenyra, but never him, that goes against his ultimate belief of dreams never made kings, dragons did. And we see the biggest schism between these two, where Daemon has continuously proven his unshakable loyalty and devotion to Rhaenyra and their family in general, and how he starts to choke her only to walk out. There's a dissension here that I don't think makes Daemon unloyal to her, but he just has an immense paradigm shift in this moment. And this is where Rhaenyra tries to appeal once more to the other lords of the Seven Kingdoms, the Starks, the Aryans, and the Baratheons, leading to one of the most powerful moments of the episode that just brings us back to the opening scene where she entrusts Lucerys with the future of their bloodline, a mother that has just lost a son, and now she is sending her young children out into the world to be active members on this war that they're about to wage. And so Lucerys goes to Storm's End to visit Lord Baratheon, and there's Aemond Targaryen, who begins to poke at his actual lineage once more, wanting an eye for an eye. And I really love the effect that they have on Aemon's eye as he takes the eye patch out, and this leads to one of the best action sequences in the entire season, essentially the trench run in Star Wars, but it's Lucerys amidst a thunderstorm flying away from Aemond, who's on the back of Vhagar. And it just goes completely wrong as Arrax, Lucerys' dragon, goes out of control, begins to try and burn Vhagar, and Vhagar goes out of control from Aemond and just crunches down the small dragon and the small dragon rider. Something clearly Daemon didn't intend to do. He just wanted the eye, but that's what makes this story compelling. Otherwise, from now on, he'd just be successful. Now there's emotional weight to it. Now there's the weight of consequences, which is everything this show has done throughout the season, leading us to a somber ending scene where there's no dialogue, there's just the haunting score playing, and we see Rahenyra learning of this news. There's no going back now. The war has been declared by Aemon Targaryen. Accidentally, but House Targaryen destroys itself. That's the last act in this season. The last action someone makes against someone else is House Targaryen self-destructing. And that's what makes this show so compelling. It's exactly what it has always been building to. This entire story through the first season has always been Viserys attempting to create a better future for his family, trying to run away from that prophecy, trying to make himself better as a king, as a father, and as a man, and how the attempts at creating that better future, the attempts at trying to make everyone happy, trying to make what he deems to be best for his family, for the kingdom, and how those mistakes ultimately seep into the next generations, and how after that it continues, and it's a vicious cycle. It creates this sense of inescapability for this supposed curse of the Targaryens. How Viserys' decisions of attempting to force a birth for his son, murder his wife eventually. How his decision to marry Otto Hightower created dissension between him and the Velaryons, and created dissension between Rahenyra and Alicent. And from then on, all these little branches of consequences and stakes continuously multiply through this season. Viserys was always the focus of the story. In the first half, he was the protagonist. How does he deal with his responsibilities as a king? How does he deal with the haunting of his actions and decisions as a man and as a father? How does he transmit all of that into the next generation as he fosters his daughter to become heir and as he tries to procreate once more, seeking another alternative for his bloodline? And in the second half, how are those actions inherited by the next generation in Rahenyra and Alicent? And we see them making very different mistakes than Viserys. In many ways, actually being smarter than him, being more cautious. They're constantly playing defensive in this Game of Thrones, trying to move the pieces of the chessboard to better protect themselves, and finding themselves constantly under attack, constantly under vigilance, constantly being under threat that the other could strike at any moment. And they continue to make the same mistake Viserys made. They continue to bring upon that vitriol, that hate, that spite, that sorrow on to their children. Where it comes to a head in episode 7, where Aemond loses his eye to a young Lucerys. Where they're so young and they're already hurting each other, viciously mauling one another, so much more than Rahenyra and Alicent ever did. And so that also comes to a head in this finale, to the point of no return. Again, Aemond just brings upon his mother's wishes by accident. And so now he also has to carry remorse for his actions and decisions, much like Viserys did, much like his mother and Rahenyra did, and now it's on to him. It's brilliant, it's it's prophetic storytelling, and it seems so easy to accomplish, but these writers made an effort continuously, and it was all focused on characters. We have such gigantic set pieces, such incredible battle sequences, and this final chase scene through the skies of Westeros. At its core, it's a family. And it's how this family is just striking against one another. They're not hurting anyone but themselves, or at the very least, they're hurting themselves first and foremost before hurting anyone else. And they don't see it because there's just so much hate and emotion commanding all of their actions and the way they see the world. And their perspectives are all so unique and individual. And that's what has made us fall in love with these characters. That's what has made them so fascinating to watch as the series unfolds. Eventually giving birth to that hate and resentment of Rahenyra trying to stand up for herself against the wishes of her father, and how that hurts her best friend, how that continuously hurts their lineage, where they eventually pitted against one another. Even Sir Criston is so hurt by Rhaenyra's decision, he sides with Otto Hightower, and so the lines of emotional warfare begin to be drawn. The emotional manipulation and the constant playing of the Game of Thrones is ever so present through the bulk of the season, with everyone making a power play. And that's what made this story so riveted, because as the episodes unfolded, you saw more and more consequences, more and more stakes, a constant sense of escalation and unpredictability, where every character, without exception, is painted in a shade of gray, where they constantly hold true to their beliefs and ideals, but their methods, their way of going about things constantly changed, whether they see no other way out or because they're so resented against the world and against other people, and they just are emotionally lashing out. And the entire narrative treats all these emotions as messy and complex. It really examines all the mixed feelings that come with such aggravating decision making that affects each character around them. We see that ever so present in this episode, where Rhaenyra is confronted with Alicent's book, with that single page, and how that calls back to so much emotionality that was carried through this episode. And that last note to end on is a continuation of everything that happened. Because both Rhaenyra and Alicent hated each other so much, they passed on that hate to their children. To the point where Aemond, claiming for Lucerys' eye, he never wanted that. That was always his mother's desire. She was the one who called for that, out of pure vitriol, out of spite, just to get one over on Rhaenyra. It's all those decisions. It's everything that has accumulated through this season, and we see the payoff for it. The show never forgets to pay anything off. We build through each episode so much, and we have this constant sense of payoff buildup and how one directly affects another. And that's the brilliant thing about this finale. It's because you can see almost on screen the literal through line of how the show began and how it leads to this. Through all the messy emotions, through all the complex characterizations, all through this intimate storytelling, and it's all about how this family is killing itself from the inside. And that's also why I believe Episode 9 and this one are incredible companion pieces. I think the context of the last episode, if you watch it back to back with this finale, and vice versa, they make each other better. Because now this family has two different branches, two opposing branches. Last week we saw one of them dealing with their grief, how they handled it, how Alicent was strong-armed into making Aegon king just to make sure Rhaenyra wasn't affected, or as less affected as possible. At least she guaranteed she wouldn't be murdered in cold blood. And now we see lines of allegiance drawn, people escaping from under Otto's iron fist of subjugation, where he literally held people and lords hostage in the last episode. And now we see one of the Cargill twins even descending from that line of allegiance and joining Rhaenyra's ranks in that powerful scene. This episode has so many incredible moments, so many memorable moments that pay off so much of what this season made, and one of the greatest set pieces in the entire series of Game of Thrones and of House of the Dragon. Before I move on to my final thoughts on Season 1 of House of the Dragon, this isn't just about me. I need you to start the conversation in the comments below about your thoughts on the overall season. Who was your favorite character? What was your favorite storyline? What do you hope to see in Season 2? Talk all the spoilers you want, anything and everything down there. And like I said, I've reviewed every single episode of House of the Dragon, so in case you have missed one, there's a playlist right up here. And if you like House of the Dragon talk, if you like movies and TV, this is the place to be. So consider clicking that subscribe button down there and you won't miss any future conversation on your favorite movies and TV. This series, while having flawed episodes, has continuously been hitting on a spectacular batting average, where at its very worst, it's a really good show. I don't think every time jump worked. I don't think important characters being introduced so late in the game served its ultimate purpose flawlessly, like the Cargill twins. I wish we could have seen more of them at least halfway through the show when we had that massive time jump and the changing actors. But when it comes to the characterizations, when it comes to the complexity of these characters, never treating them as clear bad guys, as clear good guys, what makes this show so compelling to watch, it's this family drama. It's all the clear intentions. It's all the earned decision making that never feels like it's contriving its way to have drama. The drama just happens. It just unfolds. Be it on a large scale between Daemon and Otto Hightower, between Daemon and Viserys, between Rahenyra and Alicent, between Aemond and Lucerys, or even between Daemon and Rahenyra, and how these two clash, but how they keep being pulled onto one another. Every single moment in the show, every single episode has felt like an important piece of the puzzle, one that would completely crumble this series to the ground without it. And that's how you accomplish an emotionally fulfilling payoff that completely harkens back to everything you set up, and that it closes every story thread up in a way that feels earned, in a way that is satisfying and rewards us, the viewers, for paying attention. House of the Dragon, for a first season, has completely left me jaw-dropped. This is one of the best single seasons of television I have ever seen. I am now salivating for Season 2 because I need more of these characters. I need more of the political power play. I need more of these emotional machinations where everyone is just trying to survive. At its very core, that's what this is. An intimate family drama of a family that's just trying to survive. It's fascinating. The actors were amazing. The characterizations were fantastic. They were relatable. They were compelling. This show just never stopped making an effort towards these characters and towards the audience. And that is why Season 1 of House of the Dragon gets an A. Thank you so much for watching, House of the Dragon fans. It has been an incredible 10 weeks, and hopefully we'll be back for next season. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts on this entire season and on this finale. And thank you to my channel members for always supporting the channel. So until the next one, love each other, love the movies, and Dracarys.